As Iraq moves toward its November 11th parliamentary election, one name continues to loom large despite being absent from the ballot: Masoud Barzani. The aging Kurdish leader who once fought Saddam Hussein's forces from the rugged mountains of northern Iraq remains a defining force in Kurdish politics even without holding formal office. His party, the Kurdistan Democratic Party, or KDP, is rallying voters to secure a strong Kurdish showing, not merely for seats in parliament, but for leverage in an increasingly tense relationship with Baghdad. The stakes are high: control over oil revenues, budget allocations, and the very autonomy of Iraqi Kurdistan. Masoud Barzani's story is intertwined with the modern history of Kurdish struggle. Born in 1946, he inherited the legacy of his father, Mullah Mustafa Barzani, the legendary Lion of Kurdistan, who founded the KDP and led several revolts against Baghdad. Masoud grew up surrounded by the sounds of conflict and in a teenage guerrilla before he was even old enough to vote. His political instincts, forged in the mountains, would later allow him to navigate decades of rebellion, betrayal, and shifting alliances. Even now, at nearly 80, he is still referred to as president in Kurdish media, a testament to his enduring influence. Barzani's early rise came during one of Iraq's most turbulent eras. After the 1991 Gulf War, Kurdish fighters, the Peshmerga, took advantage of the chaos to rise up against Saddam Hussein. Barzani's forces captured several northern cities, but victory was short-lived. The US-led coalition, unwilling to see Iraq fragment, allowed Saddam to strike back. Facing annihilation, Barzani was forced into negotiations with the same dictator who had once gassed the Kurds and filled mass graves with their dead. The establishment of a US and British no-fly zone over northern Iraq later granted the Kurds de facto autonomy, setting the stage for what would become the longest period of Kurdish self-rule in modern history. Yet even that success was marred by internecine war, as Barzani's KDP clashed violently with Jalal Talabani's Patriotic Union of Kurdistan, or PUK. The rivalry reached its peak in 1996 when Barzani invited Iraqi government tanks into Erbil to oust Talabani's forces, a move that stunned Washington and forced CIA officers stationed in the region to flee. But Barzani's pragmatism, often criticized as opportunism, kept him politically alive. When Saddam fell in the 2003 US-led invasion, Barzani re-emerged as a key broker in the formation of Iraq's new federal structure. The Kurdistan region flourished under his leadership, remaining comparatively peaceful even as sectarian violence engulfed Baghdad. Western investors poured into Erbil, transforming it into a hub for oil and construction. For many Kurds, Barzani became the symbol of stability, the man who had finally given their people a semi-autonomous homeland. But the triumph would not last. In 2017, emboldened by Kurdish contributions to the fight against the Islamic State, where Peshmerga forces had fought alongside Iraqi and Iranian-backed troops to liberate Mosul, Barzani took a gamble that would nearly undo everything he had built. He called a referendum on Kurdish independence, confident that global sympathy for the Kurds' sacrifices would translate into support. 90% of voters said yes. Yet, the Baghdad government declared the vote illegal and swiftly sent forces to reclaim Kirkuk, the oil-rich city Kurds had long claimed as their heartland. Within days, Kurdish troops withdrew, and Barzani was left politically isolated. The referendum, meant to crown his legacy, instead forced him to step down as president of the Kurdistan Regional Government. In a televised address after the debacle, Barzani vowed that he would always remain a Peshmerga, a soldier for his people, but the sense of betrayal ran deep. Kurds remembered how Western powers had urged caution, only to watch silently as Baghdad reasserted control. It was a reminder of a recurring theme in Kurdish history, the sense of abandonment by allies. Masoud's father, Mullah Mustafa, had suffered the same fate in 1975 when US Secretary of State Henry Kissinger brokered a deal between Iraq and Iran, cutting off aid to Kurdish rebels. Mullah Mustafa, exiled and dying of cancer in America, lamented that trusting Washington had been his greatest mistake. His son, 4 decades later, relived that same disappointment on a global stage. The scars of that betrayal, however, did not end Barzani's political relevance. Though no longer president, he continued to pull the strings behind the scenes through the KDP, which remains the most powerful Kurdish party. In the 2021 election, the KDP secured a dominant share of the Kurdish vote, partly through an alliance with influential Shiite cleric Moqtada al-Sadr. Now, as Iraq heads toward its 2025 election, Barzani is once again at the center of Kurdish politics. His party is urging Kurds to turn out in large numbers to strengthen their hand in negotiations with Baghdad over oil revenue and budget shares, issues that have long defined the relationship between the two capitals. A strong KDP performance could give Barzani the leverage to resist Baghdad's attempts to centralize control over Kurdish oil exports. The tensions between Erbil and Baghdad have escalated sharply in recent years. In 2022, Iraq's federal court declared the Kurdish Regional Oil and Gas Law unconstitutional, ordering Erbil to hand over control of its energy exports. Barzani denounced the decision as a political move designed to weaken Kurdish autonomy. Since then, disputes over payments, production contracts, and international oil sales have become recurring flashpoints. With oil revenues forming the backbone of the Kurdish economy, any reduction in financial transfers from Baghdad threatens the region's stability. For Barzani, this election is not just about seats, it is about ensuring that Kurdistan retains its economic independence in the face of renewed centralization. Despite his age, Barzani remains an active figure in Kurdish politics and diplomacy. He continues to meet with foreign envoys and maintain influence over regional decision-making. Supporters see him as the embodiment of Kurdish endurance, a man who survived Saddam's massacres, Western indifference, and internal rivalries. Critics, however, argue that his dominance has stifled younger political voices and deepened divisions within the Kurdish movement. The rivalry between his KDP and the PUK remains unresolved, occasionally erupting into disputes over revenue sharing and administrative control. For many Kurds, unity remains an elusive dream, even as they face growing pressure from Baghdad and regional powers like Iran and Turkey. As the 11th of November election nears, Barzani's influence once again hovers over Iraq's fractured political landscape. For Baghdad, the challenge lies in balancing Kurdish demands without appearing to compromise national sovereignty. For Barzani, the task is to prove that despite past setbacks, the KDP can still deliver tangible gains for Kurdish self-rule. Whether he succeeds or not will shape the future of Kurdish politics, and perhaps determine whether Iraq can maintain its fragile equilibrium between autonomy and unity. Masoud Barzani's long career, from mountain fighter to political power broker, stands as both a symbol of Kurdish resilience and a reminder of how the struggle for self-determination in Iraq is far from over.